This half hour being brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motor, cycle, RV. Multitude of insurance needs. Purdy Insurance handles them all, and they make sure they do everything they can to save you money. Customer service means everything to them. Great people, great pros. Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. It's always great to spend any time in conversation with the outstanding Neal Coolong. Sir, welcome.
As always, it is fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I was talking with a friend of mine. Okay, probably an acquaintance, but a friend, at least on my end. And what we were talking about was about Justin Fields. And I told him, I said, look, Fields is no question good enough to be in the league. He's good enough to have some success in the league. But he has so many limitations, he's about as far as he can get in the league. What is your evaluation of him at this point?
I would say you start with a holistic look at all of the people who are able and eligible to play, to be the starting quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yep.
There's really not a whole lot of them, but what's even smaller is the fact that there are only probably 7 or 8 really good ones. From that point down, you put it this way, the average quarterback in the NFL is not very good, relatively speaking, as for what we're used to in terms of statistical accomplishment, in terms of their ability to take over a game, really to play the game the way that the rules have designed it to be played in the modern times, the last 15 years or so. There just simply aren't very many of them. Justin Fields is certainly not one of those 8, but he's not out of the top 32 either. The fact that there are probably, give or take, 96 quarterbacks on NFL rosters, he's probably in the better third of that secondary group. What that means is you have to do a lot to kind of set him up to be successful. There's not a whole lot of extra that he can bring to a team. One advantage he does have is he's a good runner. He's agile. He's big. So that can help you in short yardage situations. I think that's the boost that he's given to the Steelers to this point. But when it comes to him dropping back, surveying the field, delivering a pass down the field on time and accurately, that's not something he does consistently well. In fact, you don't really get much out of him when it comes to that. And I hear Steelers fans yelling, constantly about how they need to open up the offense for him. There's a reason they don't have him throwing 15 to 18-yard out routes from a 7-step drop. He doesn't see those very well. He doesn't see the whole field. The most success that he has in passing the ball, and this was true in Chicago too, was when they roll him out. And when you roll out, you're basically angling the field diagonally, and with that, narrowing it. So there's less that he has to see. There's probably only going to be 1, maybe 2 options at that deeper level, and if he sees that as being open, he'll deliver the ball. But what I see with Justin Fields is when he drops back straight, when he's got both alleys to his right and his left and down the seam in front of him, and he's got 3-4 options in there, he does not see all of them fast enough to deliver the ball where it needs to go when a receiver is able to catch it. He hesitates. It seems like it's taking him a little bit too long to figure out where to go with it. And he's not playing with a real sense of urgency. You'll notice that he sits in the pocket probably a bit longer than your more prolific passers are on a snap-to-snap basis. And he tends to want to scramble. He wants to break schedule and he wants to get outside and try to make a play that way. But he doesn't do that particularly well either. Now, what's limiting him a bit more, I think, is a pretty disastrous receiver room that the Steelers, through hook or crook, failed to really address this offseason. You put those things together, you're not getting the full complement of a successful passing game within the structure of today's NFL with Pittsburgh. Now, do they want that situation for Justin Fields? Probably not as much, but at the same time, based on the timing of the transactions that they made, they didn't bring Justin Fields in to be their starter anyway. So I don't think that they put a whole lot of time and effort into catering the higher level offensive game plan to Fields and what Fields can do, and probably, to your point, more his limitations. What is he able to avoid? What can we get him out of? We don't want to put him in a bad spot. We need to find the things that he does well and really just focus on that. There aren't a whole lot of them that really makes him a difference-making player. Now, are there worse quarterbacks in the NFL? Absolutely. And there's going to be more that continue to come in. We may see one in Pittsburgh sooner rather than later. We've seen worse play from the quarterback position in Pittsburgh recently. So Fields is not bad, but he's not particularly good either. You have to set him up. There's a lot of things that you need to do in order to make him successful. And that speaks to, I think, a lot of things. But the Steelers' offense at this point is not in the state that it's in because Justin Fields is playing poorly. He's doing okay. You give him a C to a C plus probably overall. There are a lot of D's and some F's on this offense, and that is why they're averaging 18 points a game. And there's no real reason to think that that's going to improve anytime soon.
Yeah, because one of the jobs of any coaching staff is that, look, they need to be the first ones to realize their deficiencies. And then you try to mask those deficiencies as much as you can. The problem is the deeper you get into a season, opposing coaching staffs who are breaking down video see the deficiencies. And I think that's what's happening with the Steelers the last couple of weeks. They're now seeing where the deficiencies are, and that's why the Steelers offensively don't look like they have any rhythm whatsoever, because I think other coaching staffs are saying, yep, there's Waldo, there's Waldo, there's Waldo, and they're killing it.
Yeah, I agree completely. What we saw, and we talked about this last week, what we saw against the Colts was a very active defensive line doing things that they hadn't done to that point in the season, which strongly suggests this is something they prepared to do specifically against Pittsburgh, and it really worked up their offensive line to a point where they struggled badly in protection. Couldn't really help Fields a whole lot until more toward the end of the game when they had some success. But they screwed him up early by getting in his face, and that was by destroying their protection. What we saw on Sunday wasn't exactly the same type of thing, but what Dallas did was drop more guys into the shorter areas of the field, and they really challenged the Steelers' wide receivers, which probably isn't a Herculean task for any defense at this point, but they were with them everywhere they went on the field. They really struggled to get open. They played with an attitude. They played very physically. And with that, what they really did was, in my opinion at least, I don't know if Mike Zimmer would say the same thing, but they challenged Justin Fields to release the ball, and he wouldn't do it in a tight window, because this is what works against the Steelers that have, it seems as if their general concept, not that any team plans to turn the ball over, but the Steelers make priorities 1, 2, and 3 to protect the football. They do not want to see the ball taken away by the opposing defense. They want to take it away themselves, and to their credit, you can have some success with that. Rarely do you win the turnover battle 3-0 and lose the game. And that's what happened to the Steelers on Sunday. Justin Fields, though, in the absence of turning the ball over, isn't making big plays either. Now, to his credit, he went down the field a little bit. Some good defensive play out of Dallas in their secondary. You have to give them some credit. But Fields, he takes too long to find somebody wherever they happen to be, and that goes in concert with a group that, frankly, doesn't get open particularly well. The receivers don't work with a whole lot of separation. They're not winning their one-on-one battles. And when you put that with a quarterback who is, by mandate or choice or both, not releasing the ball if it's even kind of tight, you're not going to make plays. And that's really where they are. Their average per play is way down compared to the rest of the league. Whatever playmakers they have, or at least fans think that they have, they're doing very little, and in some cases not doing anything at all throughout the course of the game. They're not putting them into a great position to succeed. So I don't know what you want Fields to be within the structure that they're playing in. What I would say, though, overall is for a team that wants to identify itself as ground-based, they want to be physical up front. They've invested a ton in their offensive line in order to be able to do that. They don't run the ball well. So what's the identity here? They're trying to do all of these things, but none of it works. New coordinators, new players, new quarterbacks. They've changed everything out. It's the same. And this was my biggest concern going into the season. I don't know how much improvement they're going to see in year one of Arthur Smith. I think Arthur Smith dialed some stuff up, and I think it's looked better from a coordination standpoint, but there's still a lot of hiccups. There are a lot of players that are not playing particularly well. It's not all on the quarterback. It's not all on the coordinator, but they're not helping themselves in a lot of these areas, and the results are now week to week. They know exactly what they're going to do, and we've seen it 2 weeks in a row now. They've been stifled for large periods of each game that result in losses, tight losses, but losses nonetheless.
Modern football on display. TJ Watt, if there's any point I need him in the fourth quarter, and I need him on the last drive. Yet repeatedly they showed him in the fourth quarter and a couple of times in the last drive, throwing water into himself and breathing as if he just ran a 26-mile marathon. Right? No offense, Joe Green never came out. Sorry, just didn't. Jack Ham didn't come out of games. I know it's the modern way of doing things, but what am I missing here? I mean, it's the fourth quarter. If there's any time you need to be out there, it's got to be then. What is the thought process behind this?
My only assumption, I don't know how fair this is, you ask coaches about this, it really is a lot harder to manage play in football, just because things can get so out of whack on one or two plays right away. What you need to be doing is saving TJ Watt during the game so he can play the entire fourth quarter. But then Nick Herbig goes down. You've got there are plumbers and firemen playing outside linebacker for the Steelers in crunch time.
Right.
And this isn't the first time this has happened either.
Yep.
They've had issues with this. Injuries obviously happen in a game, but when Watt is the only presence of a pass rush you're going to get, and that 49 kid, whoever that Moon guy is, I appreciate the effort. He played hard. You know, he was making the most out of his opportunities, but he's not Alex Highsmith. He's not even Nick Herbig. You're not getting anything on the other side of the line.
Right.
Watt doesn't have anything left, probably because they needed him earlier to save whatever was left of the game. Before this gets to two scores, when they know they can't come back into it, Watt had to make a play. And Dallas did a really good job of containing him 2 weeks in a row now, even though Watt broke through a few times and made impactful plays in this game. But, the fact that I agree with you, I think he was gassed by the end of it, and for whatever reason that is, probably because he has to play harder than any other player in the NFL in order for his team to have a chance to win, usually late and in dramatic fashion. He wasn't able to do anything on that final drive. In fact, it was Landon Roberts making the play of his career.
Yes.
That was stopped, unfortunately, by a wet field in the most pro-Dak Prescott bounce that's ever happened. I mean, it was a tragedy. Just the level of awareness by Roberts, the effort that he put in to land in a very Gary Brackett style, Gary Brackett being the guy who caused the fumble on Jerome Bettis in the divisional playoffs back in 2005. That level of timing for that ball to bounce directly to the one guy who's not covered at that point, just tragic in many ways. But my point is, usually it's TJ Watt making that kind of a play to seal a game. And the Steelers had the opportunity to do it, but fell just short, mostly because Watt couldn't come up with the game-saving play. Now, most teams in this league, and probably for the last 30 years, haven't required a defensive player to make a gigantic play on the ball in order for them to win. But that's what Watt has done for the last 5 years, and the Steelers are spoiled because of it. Following that game, my first thought was, the reason the Steelers finish 9-8 every year, 10-7, is because they somehow manage to win these games where they're outgained 4.5 to 1, where they have 4 plays that they won on the entire game. They're all takeaways, and they were able to kick the ball well. That's the only reason they're competitive in these games. They block a field goal in this one. We've talked about this before. They always win when they block a kick. This was the one time they didn't. And it just goes to show how thin of an edge they're riding on. And T.J. Watt is usually the guy that's making that splash play late in a game in order for them to seal it in what I think most people would say is a game they really shouldn't have won. But Dallas left the door open. Dallas let Pittsburgh be in that spot, and they needed absolutely everything in order to come away with that win. It was a big win for Dallas in a real tough loss for Pittsburgh, but I think that if we went to the judges' scorecards, they'd show that Dallas won that game on paper.
Oh, there's no question. Dallas was the better team in the game. I mean, all the way through. It's just, but the bottom line is, okay, I've got 2 horses out there. Okay, the plow horse and the thoroughbred. They're both sweating just as hard, Neal. But there's a reason why the thoroughbred is the thoroughbred and the plow horse is the plow horse. Thoroughbred's got to be out there. He's got to play. I mean, he may be playing hard, but which I do think he plays very, very hard. But guys from a bygone era didn't come out of games.
I think that's the tricky part to this, too, is you have to ask yourself, how many times are you going to get Hall of Fame level production out of T.J. Watt? And at what point can you say, we really can't rely on this every single week? Not when you randomly bench your only explosive offensive playmaker, because if you watch him, he doesn't play very hard. You have nobody else that can do anything in the game except for T.J. Watt. What the one time that I don't know, his age catches up to him a little bit. The snap counts he's been playing this entire career catches up to him. He didn't have the best nutrition this week. Whatever it is, he doesn't have those final 5 plays that you need.
Right.
If that's what your team is depending on, what did you do all off season? How did you set this up and why? And these are legitimate questions, and they're ones that we've been asking constantly over the last 5 years, and it's the same team. So really, this again, everything is going to live and die with T.J. Watt, and if that's the case, I agree with you. He needs to be on the field in the final drive. Somebody's going to have to step up and make a play. I mean, to the defense's credit, there are guys that have played well, that have made plays on their own right, but none of them are T.J. Watt. Nobody in the field is T.J. Watt. You know, that will be the case pretty much every game they play for the remainder of the season. He's got to be on the field. He's got to be out there. And, sometimes it's not as if I forget which tackle was across from him in this game after Guyton went down, but it's not as if he's fresh as a daisy either. He's been having to block Watt up and down the entire game. You don't expect him to be, first snap fresh, but he's got to get in there, use his intelligence, figure out a way to make a play on the ball and try to win the game for the team.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think he's a great player. It has nothing to do with that. But guess what? Greatness is predicated on availability. I mean, sorry. Hey, you could be great. You're not great standing there. I'd rather have him very good and out there than waiting to see if we can have him be great. That's just me. All right.
We're approaching this as if, whether this is the case or not, obviously we don't know, but we're approaching this as if Watt was the one who took himself out.
Oh, no. I think they took him out.
Mike
No.
Tomlin.
Oh, no.
Way that.
Go ahead.
The way that Tomlin has rotated players this year has been, to put it mildly, unique. You remember that experiment that lasted for one drive where they had the right tackle switching out series to series?
Yep.
That didn't work very well.
No.
The quarterback situation, I think we're going to get into that, probably soon as far as likely Russell Wilson starting and Justin Fields coming in situationally. Now you have Watt not in the game in key situations when they have no depth at outside linebacker at all. They lost Leal and Herbig. So Moon was the only guy left. I don't know if they would have even had anybody else.
Right.
Watt had to be out there. They called schemes that only had one outside linebacker, and it was Moon. So this is schematic to some degree. They're planning to do this. Right. This is what they feel is their best option, because now all of a sudden Tomlin is a slave to certain snap counts. I don't know where that came from necessarily. I definitely think there's value to making sure Cam Hayward doesn't play 98% of the snaps. Right. You need to get your thoroughbreds in your terminology, a bit of a blow here and there. I get that. But that's not the situation. Is this baseball now? Once you hit 100 pitches, doesn't matter the situation. Right. The guy absolutely cannot pitch anymore. Right. You can't do that. And situationally, when you become a slave to that, you lose the context of the game that you're playing in. Not the course of the season. It's the game right now. Yep. This is a live or die league. You're not able to kind of take the long view of things. Mm-hmm. He's got to be out there playing. And that's true of anybody. And I think we'd probably see this a lot more if there was more than just George Pickens on offense, who was probably benched more than was, being given a break or a respite for a little bit. If they had anybody else, they might be able to do more. But you notice when Pickens is not on the field, because then it's Calvin Austin. Yeah. They're not getting a whole lot from everybody overall. They've got to find a way to add to depth so they can get these guys a bit of a break. Until they do that, though, they've got to be out there playing.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Appreciate you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
And this half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Half hour brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Always get ready for your tailgate by going to Brewers Outlet. Imports Domestics Microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drink, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. Pickle bar, led by the barrels and the dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. They announced the Ford Frick Award finalists. As far as I'm concerned, he should have been one of them, but that's just a personal opinion because I consider him such a close friend. Wheels, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. My ship has sailed for that award, but I have a lot of good friends that have won it, and more that are eligible from what I see this year, so that's terrific.
I know, but I'm a firm believer that you should be in. But that's me. That's me.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed your intro about Penn State sports and more, so I guess I'm more.
You're always the more. All right. Pete Rose passed away this week. Yeah. Okay, bring us back to when he signed the 4-year deal with the Phillies and what it meant to the franchise at that moment, considering the franchise's history to that point.
Well, it meant a lot because, we'd been through the playoffs and losing in 76, 78, 76, 77, 78 when you only, quote unquote, only had to win 3 games and you went to the World Series. So now all of a sudden they pull off this move to bring Pete in for the 79 season. He was still a really, really good player at that time. And, there was that the jockeying for who was going to sign him. The Cardinals were going to give him a brewery, a distributorship, and Pirates were going to give him racehorses and all that stuff. But he always said that he had friends with the Phillies, and the day that he was going to sign, he said, I'm signing with a National League team where I have some good friends. And I'll never forget my phone ringing that morning. And the guy who always had more information before it happened, Larry Bow, was on there saying, we got him. He means us because I'm one of his friends. And as usual, Bow was right. So, it was no guarantee the Phillies were going to win with him there. But it sure made things a lot better, and it brought in that veteran presence. And, you talk about the missing, quote-unquote, missing piece to a puzzle. I don't have any doubt in my mind that Pete was that guy that came in because he told Mike Schmidt he was the best player in the league, and Schmidt kind of looked at him like, "You kidding me? You know, you just came from bench and Perez and Morgan and those guys." So he turned Mike Schmidt around too mentally and helped Mike Schmidt become the greatest third baseman of all time. And of course, Phillies won a World Series in 1980 with him.
On an everyday basis, you know, you go through a long season. Wheels, what was it like to sit down and just talk baseball with him and the insights that he could give you on baseball? Because he has such a great mind.
He did. And you know what, Steve? I always said, if you had a chance to spend, and you did, to spend years and years with one of the top people in the history of your business, let's say, in our case, sports. You had Joe Paterno, and I had Pete Rose for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was like a PhD in the game because he would talk to you. He would get on the bus and sit beside you. He'd sit beside me sometimes, and he'd go, "Wheels, in the fifth inning with 2 outs, and that. What do you think?" I think, "What do I think? What do you think?" But he would do that. You know, he would ask your opinion on things, and then you could talk to him about anything at any time. I never saw him get condescending with even a reporter who might ask him a dumb question. You might give him that look of his with those bird-like eyes that he had. But he was very gracious with the media and with us and people that he trusted around the club like us. Boy, he'd tell you everything, and you could learn so much from him. And I told him that later on when we would get together and talk, that how grateful I was for those 5 years.
It's interesting because you mentioned with Joe. Joe would bring up a topic, and he'd talk to me about the topic, and then he'd want my opinion on the topic. And then we'd go back and forth. You want to know why we'd go back and forth? He wanted to see how committed I was. See, what was my commitment to my opinion, right? And we always had like those kind of fun little mini talks along the way.
Yeah.
I still ask questions today of people I interviewed based on the things I learned from him.
Wow.
That tells you everything about what the Joe experience was like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I had an experience with him when I was 21 years old for one football season at the student radio station, and it was something I'll never forget. But to have look, when you do a pregame show with somebody or do a radio show with somebody the way you do, they trust you.
Yes.
And they'll tell you a lot of stuff, as you know. They'll tell you a lot of stuff off the air that they know you won't use, but it'll always lead you in the right direction. And Pete was that kind of guy. He would give you that kind of stuff. If he thought he could hit some guy, the guy had nothing, he would tell you. And, you would look forward to seeing how he would face him that night and things like that. But those kind of guys, when they trust you, boy, you can learn so much. And I know Joe trusted you a lot, and Pete trusted us.
Yeah. So when it comes to Philadelphia, we know that he grew up in Cincinnati. That's his town. I got it. But what made him love his time in Philadelphia? Because obviously he did.
Well, he wanted to win. That's what it was. Hey, look, Pete was one of those guys that no matter where he went, the team booed him till they got him, and that's what happened when he came to Philadelphia. Once he came to Philadelphia, all those boos became cheers. But I think one of the reasons that I know the main reason he liked playing in Philadelphia was because the fans were baseball fans.
Yeah.
They knew the game. They were passionate about it the way he was passionate about everything about the game, and they wanted to win. And those were the qualities that Pete had as an athlete, as a baseball player. He loved being in Philadelphia. He used to laugh about, how they used to boo him and yell at him and throw stuff at him and say this and that about him, and now they love me. But he said he knew that would happen as soon as he came to the Phillies. Now, did he know that we were going to win? No. But did he think we would? Absolutely. He said, I didn't come here to lose. Said, I got 2 World Series rings, 2 championships. I won another one. And this team, basically that he was surrounded by at that time, had come so close, as we said. He knew that this team could win, but it just was going to take a lot of dedication by a lot of people, and he really kept them focused.
Now, we know how this all ended up and played out. In retrospect, is there any compromise you could have seen that at least would have allowed Pete Rose to get on the ballot that way, like Bonds got on the ballot, Clemens got on the ballot, and the voters then decided yay or nay. Did you see any compromise along the way based on what you know about the rules of baseball and how it works?
No, I really didn't, and I knew that the people that run the sport were hardcore about it. And I think more than anything, you and I have talked about this. That I was told when I was 25 years old, my first day there, to read the board in the clubhouse, and it says if you bet on baseball, you're banned. You're banned from the game. But not only did that happen with him, Steve, but he wouldn't come clean. He just kept lying about it and lying about it. And then by the time he finally came clean, it was always with qualifiers. And so I think he was his own worst enemy as far as that goes. And now people say, well, look at all the gambling sites in sports now. I said, I know, I understand what you're saying. But the temperament of the time from Major League Baseball was no. If they didn't say this, but I've always believed that if he'd have come clean, there'd have been a period of 10 years.
Yes, I agree.
Who knows? Whatever. Yeah. And he'd been on the ballot.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, Mike Schmidt went to bat with him, with Bud Selig, right?
Yep.
Went to bat with Bud Selig, along with Joe Morgan. So Selig met with him. And and after he laid out, hey, look, no more association with casinos, no more association. What's the first thing Pete did? He went to a sports book that night, right? Because he had a promotional thing. He wanted to make the money.
Steve, look, as I told you, I was really close with him. You know me, I don't like to name and say him, but I was really close with him. And we were great after he left. And he's in town managing, and I'm sitting in his office because Bruce Ruffin had pitched a game that night. It was a rookie, and I thought he pitched pretty well. And I want to go down and talk to Pete about some things. And I asked him about Ruffin. He said, "No, I didn't see much there. I don't think he's got that much stuff." So, and then he looked at me, and he can't make this up. He looked me right in the eyes, and he said, "Wheels, I didn't bet on baseball." And I'm going, Pete, I didn't ask you. But he felt, for whatever reason, he had to say that, and that was when he was in his period of lying. Even the people that he knew him and cared about him. Did I know he had done anything like that? Right. Heck no. I didn't know any of that sort of stuff. I know he loved action. I know he loved to bet on the dogs, greyhounds in St. Petersburg in spring training, and he always would ask about. He used to talk to me about Penn State football. He knew college football inside and out.
I know he did.
He'd ask me who do you like this week with Penn State? I go, Pete, I don't like to do that stuff because I don't want to get into point spread. Come on, who do you like? So that's what he was, Steve. He just liked action.
And again, we know what the laws are today. 30-something states now have sportsbook, Pennsylvania being one of them. In my broadcasting class, I said, look, I ask everybody, who's made bets? Oh, not all, but most hands go up. And I said, okay, let me give you a piece of advice. Never bet on a game that you are covering. I said, because it's going to jade how you cover the game. And that's the advice I give them. If you're standing there, what would you tell them? Same thing or not?
That's great advice. I've never thought of that. Not being someone who's ever taught that. My only feelings about it on a personal level is, I'm so glad I don't have to be on the telecast reading those odds. As they go on there. When Tom has to do that, McCarthy, I go, oh God, I'm so happy I'm not there and have to do that. And I'm not trying to be, Father Flanagan here right now about everything, but it just turns me off. I don't get it. Oh, I do get it. I understand why they need the revenues are there for the sports and all that, but I just worry you're creating a class of kids that are gamblers and that aren't really fans, that they're just betting on moments, and they're not going to be lifetime fans. And I think it's changed sports in a way that people are nastier now because they lost some money on somebody.
You are so right about that. It's something I pointed out when this first came out 5 years ago. I said, you're going to get people getting angrier about results. I said, even when their team wins, because it's personal when you have money on it. And I'll give you an example last week. People are asking me in the parking lot, do you think they can cover the 19 and a half? And I said to them, I looked at them and says, I don't care if they win by 1. I said, I just want to win and get the heck out of here. So I don't care about that stuff. And you're the same way.
Well, you can make light of it too, yeah. Because what was it? The 2 games ago when the score was getting so high and the spread was whatever it was, and you said, "Well, there's some people really interested in this, whether these points count or not." And I laughed out loud because obviously I knew what you meant. that just made me laugh because it's typical you and Jack. You're all over everything.
Oh God. Yeah, I looked over. Jack's got this smirk on his face. There's some people interested whether he knocks this one in or not. All right, so look, I'm not going to bring you on here to do this, okay? Wheels and I always, okay, now here's your chance, okay? I'm going to let you ask a couple. Go ahead.
Well, the one thing I got to tell you, the one thing I really worry about now is all these injuries that are early on, and losing a couple kids that just they basically kicked them out of the program and all that on defense before the season and all that. You've always talked to me about the depth that they've been putting together the last few years. I know it's early, but is there still enough depth there to deal with all this stuff?
Yeah, there is, and let's start with this. The staff is very high in Dwan Lane, which helps. Now, how he's integrated so they give him enough playing time to gain more confidence, that's going to be the key. When you look at the offensive line against Illinois, Wormley got poked in the eye, had to leave. Nelson got poked in the eye, had to leave. Now I'm no expert. It just seems like hands to the face to me, but I'm no expert.
Really.
Now, are they going to be fine? Yes. But last week, WOWY moves over to right guard. They bring Cooper Cousins in the game. And Nolan Rucci, who had never practiced at guard, played a few plays at guard in the game and did well enough. That's, when you're practicing in such a way where you're giving guys multiple positions to work at, it gives you the best opportunity to still put the best 5 available guys on the field and not just have a 2 ascend to a 1 when you may have a better option because you practiced it that way. And they've done that. That's why they have the depth they have.
Yeah, and just watching, it's been a while. You watch a Penn State offensive line dominate the line of scrimmage the way they've been doing it. Going forward, that's something I'm really. You mentioned WOWY. Is he the offensive lineman that they put in motion?
Yes, he's the offensive lineman they put in motion, and then he got invaluable experience because he's practiced at center in practice, but against Kent State, he did several series of playing at center. And again, what's the idea behind that? Say something were to happen to Dawkins. I still want my 5 best available guys out there. He'd be one of them, and he can play that spot, and that really helped.
Yeah, but it's just what I really there's so many things about that game Saturday that I like, but I know you and Jack had to enjoy when Singleton smoked that linebacker and then went out and caught the pass and then knocked the corner or safety over.
He just. Okay, it's funny because you watch Donko. Watch Donko on that play. Singleton gets this guy in the air. And you look at Donko. Donko's like looking up, like, yeah, there he goes. And then he gets out and he catches the pass and he blows through 2 other guys. You're talking about 227 pounds, Wheels. 227. Yeah. And he's just cut, and he's a thick-bodied kid where he doesn't look 227. He looks like he's 205. And he's just, he's just a fabulous player.
Yeah, with that speed of his, you expect him to be more of a scat back, and that Allen is the guy that's going to be knocking people over. Fat Man's going to be knocking people over, but they can both really get positive yardage. That's what I love watching.
Well, Fat Man invites contact. It's like you got guys cutting away from people. He looks like a guy and he cuts toward him.
Well, that game was really fun. I'm not, I'm not going to be one of those ones to look ahead. But the USC thing should really be a challenge. Yeah. Don't you think, with the travel and all the other things involved in playing a game like that?
Yeah, they're leaving Thursday, so they're not going to. UCLA, for example, not making the trip until Friday. But Penn State's going out there. But it's also a long, as you know, I'm not telling you, I'm talking to a guy that's flown 1 billion miles here. I mean, it's about, I'd say, an hour to an hour and 10 minutes longer going west. So they're going to go out Thursday, and then they're going to work out Friday, and then play Saturday. And that's how they're going to do it. And USC, Moss is a good quarterback. Branch is great on returns and as a wide receiver. In fact, they've got it with Hudson and Lane. They've really got some terrific players in their pass game. The running game with Marks is very good. The area where they are better is they are a better defensive team this year than they were the last 2 years. Now, are they great defensively? No, but they're better. And there's no question about that they're a better defensive team than they have been the last 2 years.
Yeah, like last year, it seemed like anybody that played USC was a track meet. It just, how many points were you going to throw up? I mean, they'd throw them up too, but they didn't seem to be playing. I've watched them a couple times, and look, they should have great athletes out there. Just be from the area where they can recruit with their NIL money, and because they're USC.
Right, I agree, and that's what I think was always baffling for them, because this is how they masked statistically defensive problems. Remember a couple of years ago they led the nation in takeaways? Well, a lot of those takeaways happened after somebody drove the ball 60 yards, right? Right? And so it's like, oh, they're playing great defense. They're not. And you'd watch the game, and they're giving up chunks and chunks and chunks. And they were playing Washington last year, and Penn State played Maryland that night. And Jack and I were driving back together, and we're listening to the USC broadcast. And, of course, Washington had a great team last year. And Peter Arbogast is doing the game. He says, they give it to Robinson. There he goes again. It's another long one. There he goes again. It's another long one. There he goes again. And the two of us are laughing in the car because he's just not hiding his disdain.
That's pretty bad when you. Hey, look, I've been through that in our sport. When you know the guy who's starting that night isn't going to get out of the second. You can see it coming. You just know. It's one of those things. So what are you going to do? Hey, you got to describe it, but it's like, well, this is really a shocker that this guy can't get anybody out with that stuff he's got tonight.
To quote the movie series Mission Impossible, hope is not a strategy.
Oh, that's hey, do they have to? You guys have to go down to Harrisburg to fly out? Is that what I've been reading?
Yeah. That's how they'll have to do it because they're going to take a 777 out. They can't get a 777 in here.
Yeah.
So that's how to do it. And look, 777s have beds and things like that, so that really helps, especially in post game coming back.
Yeah, I know. I when I went to Europe this year, we took one of those, and they are great. I mean, there's a lot of great accommodations on that. But yeah, there's no way that you could just take a normal size, even a stretch of some kind out there. You had to get the big plane. So I thought I'd read that they had to do that. You'll be all right though. You'll be able to land at LAX. They can handle that.
Oh yeah, they can handle that. That's no problem. I'm going to be interested to see how we do the basketball thing. May have to stop twice.
Oh yeah. Oh right. Well, you and I talked about this, that when this happened, when they added these teams, it's kind of cool and all that they're in, but it presents some immense problems, I would think, for travel, and that'll be the first time Penn State's going to deal with it, I guess.
Yeah, first time through it, but you know what? Hey, at least we're not going by train, not driving out. So you know what? I always tell everybody, I just go where they tell me to go. After that, I'm good.
We used to fly an airline when we first started our charters. It was great. It's called Ozark. It was out of St. Louis.
Oh, I remember.
And remember, they had a lot of DC-9s. They were smaller airplanes, but they were great meals and all. We all loved them. I mean, who cared? Because we were flying charters now. But when we were going west, we had to stop. we had to do a fuel stop because, obviously you're going into the headwinds when you're headed west, so we would have to stop. But, well, they'll put more, for the players, they'll put more food and booze on the plane for them, so they'll be all right.
You are the best.
Well, let me put it this way. Some of the broadcasters.
Some, and I know which ones. All right. You are the best. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. I always enjoy it. It's great catching up with you, and I love listening to you guys do the games.
Hey, by the way, is the place in Clearwater okay?
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, I'm up on a bluff. I'm up real high. So, if the water gets up there, we got to get an ark. We're all right up there. But the beach areas, unfortunately, got smoked. And there's a lot of damage over there, and it's very sad.
That kickoff in the Outback Bowl by Stout, did you get the ball signed? No, I'm just kidding. No.
I did laugh when you said that landed in my yard.
I had to do it. I had to.
Well, he had a thunderfoot. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Hey, you're the best, my man.
Thanks, buddy. All right.
Too.
Anytime. Love talking with you.
Same here. He is the best. That is Chris Wheeler. Half hour brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.